The Firebirds Fan Zone podcast is brought to you by Kyle Garman Realtor. Whether you're buying or selling, whether for your forever home or that quiet desert vacation getaway, Kyle Garman and the team at Keller Williams have the experience and skill to make the process simple and convenient. Check them out today at kylegarman.kw.com. Our podcast is also brought to you by DesertDefenseLawyers.com, DUI and criminal defense throughout the Coachella Valley. The criminal justice system is scary and confusing, but relief is just a click away at DesertDefenseLawyers.com, where we've been keeping folks out of the penalty box since 2008. The Coachella Valley Firebirds are bringing the Valley closer together, and the Firebirds Fan Zone podcast is your weekly dose of everything Firebirds. If you have suggestions for guests or questions you'd like answered or anything you want to add, be sure to leave them in the comments. If you like what you hear, please remember to hit that like button for this episode and be sure to subscribe. So if you're ready, here we go. Let's get into it. 3, 2, 1.
Firebirds goal! Scoring his 13th goal of the playoff. The captain, number 17, Max McCormick, assisted by number 19, Cameron Hughes. Welcome to the Firebirds Fan Zone with your hosts, David and Kyle.
Wow, that's pretty good. That's strong. Really good. And we are already rolling.
We'll get right into it. So Kyle, welcome to the show, to the Firebirds Fan Zone with David and Kyle, and our special guest today is Kyle Serra. So this works out really well.
Good to know another Kyle.
Yeah, it's kind of hilarious. I've been running into more of those. So first of all, thanks a lot again for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Take a minute. The whole purpose of our show, and we had a great conversation with Jason, but it's really to just do a deeper dive as to what you guys do. Let's get into it. What do you do for the Firebirds?
So I am the video production manager. It's a fancy way of saying the videographer. Mm-hmm. I got hired back in December, and my primary job is to capture video content for the Firebirds. So if you've ever been to any NHL game or any hockey game in particular, you see all those like cool action shots up on the video board of the slow motion goals or like a big hit against the board or the celebrations or sellies as we like to call it. I'm the one who captures those shots. I'm always on the ice level, sometimes in the stands, or sometimes I get access to the roof, the scaffolding up above the rink, so I can shoot down and get action shots, things like that.
Awesome.
So that's my primary job, is to capture those images.
Are you the only one?
I'm the only one who captures those kinds of video clips, but I'm not the only one who produces video content for the Firebirds.
I'll say, because hockey is a fast-moving.
Oh yeah,
all over you can't possibly be in all of those places at the same time.
No.
And the stuff that I've seen on the board is pretty magnificent.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Are you just at the right place at the right time all the time, or what?
Unfortunately, that's how it goes in hockey or any fast-paced sport. You got to be at the right place at the right time. And also, I like variety, so I'm not always in one place, just capturing everything that I can. Once I capture a goal in one place, I go to the next section and capture another goal from another angle. If I happen to miss a goal when I'm running in between places, unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about that. And then, obviously, all the goals are going to be captured by the broadcast cameras. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we'll just pull the footage from there, but most of the time, when we're using my footage, it's more in depth. It's more.
Do you have a circuit that you work during a game? Because I notice you're at 106, always the first part of the third period. We always see
there
you
there.
Are.
That's
why? Because you guys have one of the best seats in the house.
We do. Yeah, we do.
We do.
My usual circuit is, for me, the most exciting part of a hockey video is the goals. So I like to...
We see a lot of those.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're in a good spot.
So that's why you'll see me during the first and third periods, you'll see me on the side of the rink where the Firebirds shoot twice, because I want to be on the side where the opponent's goaltender is.
Right.
And that's where the goals happen. Yep. If I happen to be on the other side of the rink where our goaltender is, that's where I'll get the saves. Okay. But you'll see, if you were to take a look at my footage, 80% of the footage that I get are all goals, whereas the others are like hits, saves, and everything else.
So what were you doing leading up to, was this something that you've always done? What was your background going into this? You said you got hired in December. What were you doing before then?
Yeah, what was November like for you?
Yeah, there
what were you doing then?
Yeah, like what?
Let me tell you. So just a quick background. I've been doing video content for about 20 years.
Holy cow.
I grew up with my parents just following me around with a video camera, and then that kind of piqued my interest. Back in high school, I took video production classes. I kind of turned that into a freelance business because I started filming all of the sports teams from my high school. Then they hired me to make their end of the year banquet video, like a highlight reel of all the clips.
They hired you to do that?
They hired me to do that.
That's awesome.
And so the basketball coach was like, "Hey, I want you to do our video." The football coach, "Hey, could you do ours as well?" So I kind of did that freelancing for about 20 years. I also parlayed that into if someone wanted a video for a radio show they were doing. I started doing weddings. I started doing bar mitzvahs. And so that's where my video background comes from. And then started getting into motion graphics when I went to college at Cal State Northridge. I started doing that, and then I also back in 2015 I decided, hey, I wanted to do a little bit of hockey public address announcing.
You got the voice for it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just happened at my coworker at the time just happened to be the equipment manager for Long Beach State University's hockey team, and they just happened to be looking for a public address announcer. So that's where I got my start, and then from there on out, I became the backup announcer to other local colleges, UCLA, Cal State Northridge. I also did a little bit of regional baseball. Mostly hockey. I also did regional baseball. I also did women's basketball. Did football at one of my colleges, Los Angeles Valley College. So it's kind of bouncing back and forth between backup announcer and regular announcer. And then when I hear that there's possibly going to be a new hockey team in California, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can get on the ground floor of this hockey team. So I looked on the website and didn't find any job postings for public address announcer. And I thought, well, they're going to need one at some point. So what I did was I sort of like blind emailed the staff saying, hey, I'm a public address announcer, but I also do video. But hey, if you'd like a public address announcer, I'm local, I'm available.
You were trying to get in as the PA.
That was my original pull. I wanted to be the PA announcer.
But then you became.
So, and unbeknownst to me, at the same time, my buddy Jason was also submitting to be the public address announcer.
And he wasn't telling you about it either, was he?
No. Well, the way we found out, he and I were helping a mutual friend move. And he and I got to talking about hockey, and that's how I found out he submitted as well.
How funny.
And the buddy who we were moving was just kind of quipped, it does, let the better man win. Maybe if whoever gets hired first, maybe they'll help you, get hired as well. So months later, and I hadn't heard anything for months, I finally get a call from the Firebirds saying, are you still interested in the videographer position? Now, knowing that the public address announcer isn't a full-time position, I kind of knew that going in, but I still wanted to try. They offered me the videographer position, which is a full-time position.
That's awesome.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah.
So then once they hired me on as the videographer, and I heard that the game director hadn't hired a public address announcer yet, I started campaigning hard for Jason to get it because
and you kept the promise.
That's so cool.
Kind of flip-flop the promise that our buddy kind of quipped, but I'm actually really glad that Jason got hired on as the public address announcer because, one, he has that grit in his voice that I can't really do.
Yeah, we had him. He did a little thing for us here. Yeah, it was so good. It was so good.
The way he says Firebirds.
Yeah,
I can't really do that. So I'm glad
strong.
he did. But the other thing is that his hockey knowledge is so vast.
We
saw that.
Outplays mine.
It was great.
So much. So not only does he contribute his voice to the Firebirds, but he contributes his knowledge. He's quick to recognize a penalty. He's quick to recognize who has the goal, who has both assists.
Yeah.
Much better than I do.
So you feel like everybody landed where they were supposed to land?
Absolutely.
And how long you guys been friends?
We just passed 10 years.
Wow.
Actually.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
Yeah, he and I met through the game show circuit. We're huge game show and trivia nerds. He's actually been on game shows.
Hold on.
No, wait.
Hold
Oh,
on.
here we go. We didn't talk about this.
What is the
Here
game
we
show
go.
circuit? What does that
Let's
even mean?
Oh boy. Okay, so this would be a whole other episode. We could talk about this, but
We got time.
Yeah, we got.
we got time.
Yeah.
This
How
is
long
How long do you
time?
want this episode to be?
well,
As long as it takes.
we had a good session last time, but this is why
yeah.
we do the Firebirds fan zone is to get in
Yeah.
and get these insights because we want to know.
Okay, so at the same time, I was working at my previous job, which was Universal Studios Hollywood. It was just to pay the bills, and I was doing my videography. I had been a huge game show fan, again, since I was a kid.
I'm
So
a huge game show fan, by the way.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but
No,
I'm
no,
telling
go
you right
ahead,
now,
please.
my inner child, because I grew up in the 80s.
Okay.
My bucket list thing I would love to be a game show host.
Really?
I've always wanted to
You
be.
definitely have that presence.
I want to be. I always thought that would be a fun job.
Did you ever audition for one?
I haven't yet, but
did.
being out here, I thought this would be a great.
You're
but
in the town. I took the
I'm
test
telling
for a show called Win Ben Stein's Money,
I know that show.
and it was
one of my favorite
It
game
was
shows.
a 20-question test. And
wow.
I'm not a dumb guy. I got this many right. Out of 20, I got 3 right.
Wow.
And I was not on the show.
They did say
Yeah.
that Win Ben Stein's Money was, quote, the hardest $5,000 to win on TV.
Yeah, exactly. And they
That's a
during the
tough
whole
one.
thing, they're like, it's harder than Jeopardy. It's going to be harder than Jeopardy. And
I would do like a dating type, show. I think that would be, for me, when
You want to host it.
I would, I'd want it like they used to do
Like
back in
the
the
dating
day,
game.
the dating game
The
or something like
newlywed
that,
game.
the newlywed game, something fun like that. I think
could see that.
any of that,
I could
that
definitely
that'd be
see
so
that.
much fun.
so
But
now
anyway,
that's
what
awesome.
what is the circuit?
So the circuit is being a game show fan since I was a kid. I never really met anyone who kind of spoke the lingo that I did or like knew the history of game shows like I did. When I was working on this this TV show for Marie Osmond back in 2013, I happened to go to this local bar that my coworkers were going to. They were like, "Hey, come down for trivia night." I was like, "Okay," and I'm expecting this is like pen and paper kind of trivia night, but no, these guys put on like full game show like recreations.
Really?
They had custom made buzzers. They had graphics on the screen that actually looked like the graphics you would see.
What bar was this?
This was called Liquid Zoo in Van Nuys. This
Liquid
was just
Zoo. All right.
it goes further than that. Technically, they're actually not there anymore.
They were canceled.
They went on to bigger and better things.
Yeah,
That's how the story goes. Yeah. But it was just so authentic, and it was so on point. I was like, wow, this is like the next level of bar trivia.
Yeah.
It's not just trivia questions. It's you're
on the show.
You're on the show. You're
Yeah.
like you are the contestant.
That's awesome.
So I decided, hey, what does it take to join this club? And they accepted me as a new member. So from there on,
There's membership.
What did it take to get in?
Wow.
I just every Thursday I went there and participated and just got to talking to the guys. Their game show knowledge out trumps mine.
What is game show knowledge? Give us an example.
So if you've watched game shows, it's just watching game shows and knowing who won what.
Oh,
and
wow.
Watching like those game show blooper shows that they used to put on.
Yeah.
And apparently, and I learned this from them, there's actually a game show congress that used to go on every year, which is kind of like San Diego Comic-Con, but it's for game show, a celebration of game shows and trivia.
Well, it was a big deal, especially in the 80s. There was a lot of that going on, and there was. I mean, a lot of people
what else are
staying
you supposed to
home
do when you
watching
stay
that
home
stuff.
sick from school?
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you would see the likes of, God, who they have? They had like Tom Kennedy, not Bill Cullen because he already passed. There was Bob Barker was there a couple of times. Peter Marshall. They brought on a bunch of like special guests, like actual game show hosts,
That's
game show
amazing.
producers, and game show winners. Like in recent years, Ken Jennings would show up.
Okay.
That sort of kind of evolved into another con that I'll get into in a second. But so I joined that group, and any kind of gig that they had either at these cons or at other bars that they were at, I would be the announcer, or I would host a game or two, or I would
fun.
start writing for them. Dude. And I've been with that group for 10 years, and a member of that group at the time was Jason Hernandez. So that's That's how I met. That's
we
how
got
I
the
met him.
backstory. So that's how you guys met.
There's a lot more to that, which again would take a while, but that's how he and I met. He and I shared a mutual game show connection.
He never got into that with us, by the way. He never shared. He never shared that.
Like that.
Oh,
here's what he did.
He
share.
didn't really talk about you at all.
No, what was interesting though, and this is why I love that the whole premise of doing the show was to have this type of backstories, but also he was a professional swing dancer.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
He told me that early on, and you look at the guy and you look at his background, you would never
guessed it. Yeah, that was the coolest thing. So like, this is just we're peeling the onion back, man.
Serious.
So cool.
And I'd never even seen him swing dance, so he hasn't even shown me like any kind of videos. So I'd like to see that.
I would
myself.
too. I would too.
Maybe it's just a story.
So back to you being at the arena. I'm sorry, I want to fast forward a little bit if we're good with that. I had I was thinking about it today. We know each other through the last season. You would come to our section, and then we kind of met and we talked, and I think we really introduced ourselves on the ice when we got the opportunity to write our names on the ice, and then it was finally like, hey, I'm Kyle, and it was one of those cool because we saw each other a lot, and like Dave said, you're in our section, and we see similar faces, but my thought about it, with what you were doing, because you're a hockey fan.
Oh yeah,
you're a real
huge hockey fan,
right?
I grew up in Irvine, so it was all Anaheim Ducks.
All Ducks
for me.
See, Duck guy.
Yeah,
and so I always thought, how do you separate? I know you're a professional too, so I know that. But I mean, you're a fan, so how do we go from there you are, you're trying to capture the moment. How do you capture the moment? Be in the moment. You're a fan. You're a professional. You're trying to capture all this stuff. Like, how do you separate and do all of that? I mean, that's got to be hard.
it is hard. And being this my first like real full-time professional sports job doing videography, you kind of have to step back a little bit, especially when all my life I'm sitting in the stands and I'm watching hockey. When a puck goes in the goal, I'm flipping out. I'm like raising my hands and I'm shouting. I'm like, yeah. But when you're trying to be a professional and film something, you kind of have to kind of bottle that up, for lack of a better term, kind of keep that inside, because one, for practical reasons, when you're filming something and you don't want to shake the camera, when a goal goes off, you don't want to go like, yeah, and all of a sudden you have this hugely shaky footage. So it's really hard to just kind of take a step back, try and enjoy the moment as much as you can, but also you're there to capture the moment. And one thing that does help is sometimes I shoot these goals at 120 frames per second, which is slow motion.
Okay.
So that helps with a little bit of the shakiness, because as you're trying to contain that excitement, I kind of shake the camera a little bit, but because it's shooting at such a slow frame rate, you don't really notice it when you're watching it, unless you.
Well, I've seen your face. And I've seen your body language during critical moments in the game.
Yeah,
so
we're watching you. You think you're watching us.
Gosh.
We're watching you.
You might think you're hiding it, but the only thing missing is the raising of the hands in the air.
See, here's the thing.
Yeah.
I am hiding my excitement, but I'm definitely not hiding my nervousness or my anxiety, because I'm right there with y'all when we're in a crucial moment and a goal needs to go in for us. I'm right there, sweating, nervous, just going, oh, please go in, oh, please go in, oh, please go in.
I think one of the moments that I remember also the most when I saw some of your personality come out, because you're pretty much locked in. And I talked to Jason about this, in our last episode, about being locked in the moment, because he's a big hockey fan.
Oh, yeah.
And it's hard to, you got to be in the moment, you got to be professional, and yet, you're there. I think one of the coolest memories that I have of you, when I'm like, oh, there's Kyle's personality, when we were at the airport.
Okay.
We're at the airport, we're out supporting the guys, and I loved it. You come driving through, and you're screaming out the window, let's get loud, get fired up, let's bring it. Because the boys were flying back, and I was like, dude, that guy, okay, there it is. He's not, it showed a piece of your personality, and I went, that guy's awesome. And you're already awesome, but it really showed like, oh, no, because you got fired up.
Oh, yeah.
You were fired up, and it was really cool to see, and I'm like, okay, he's in.
Well, see, there's a reason behind that, because at that time, that was after Game 5 of the finals, and we were down 3-2.
Yeah, man.
And I had been in Hershey for the last 3 games, and I heard how loud they can get. Like, this is obviously a storied franchise, Hershey is, and there's already an established fan base, so and they love their hockey. Like, that is a hockey town, not as big as hockey town is in Detroit, obviously, because they're a more famous hockey town, but they were loud, and so I felt, because I had already had that established connection with the fans, especially the two of y'all, I thought, okay, if they can be that loud, and I know that our boys feed off of the fans' energy. Yeah. So I needed to send the message that we need to be louder. So that's why I was out on the Facebook circuit saying we need to be louder.
You did, you were beating that drum, and that was awesome.
At that following game, you came down our stairs between periods, and you were serious, dude. You're like, hey, we got to get loud. We got to get it done. And I'm like, geez, I guess I better.
And you were.
Maybe I wasn't loud enough. I lost my voice already.
Okay, so let's lead into that. Now, we asked Jason a bit, but, what was your take on, because you're around the guys a lot, right?
Not as much as you think, but obviously more than the fans.
So, I mean, there we are. We're trying to do our part. And we kind of did. We felt that, and we heard some of the interviews. Even we heard Joey, he was at the airport. He had talked about the fanhood. He was going to miss that. They were on the road, all those things. So we knew we had an influence. How much of an influence do you think we really had? During regular season, obviously playoffs, we took it up a notch. I didn't think we could, but we really did. How much of an influence, the fans had on what was going on?
Every single press conference, or media scrums, as we call them, that I would go to towards the end of the season and all throughout playoffs, there was not one person that didn't say something about the fans and how much of an impact y'all have on the Firebirds. Like, awesome. Obviously, they have that passion within them. They have that passion to win. They have that passion to go out there and do well. But me personally, being a fan all these years, I really think that any kind of sports players, they feed off the fans' energy. Take an example from the Seattle Seahawks. Their stadium up there, I forgot what it's called now.
Well, it's Lumen Field now, but it was like CenturyLink when we had the Beastquake.
Exactly.
I was there.
I
was at that game.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, their fan base is so loud, and I guess that stadium is like designed so much to where it amplifies all the cheering.
Hold on. Can I?
Okay, sure. Being the Seahawk fan.
Yes, and I grew up in it, so I remember when they built that. And by the way, little fun fact, when they imploded the Kingdom, they actually recycled that concrete to help rebuild the new stadium.
Really?
So it still lives. And when they built that, a lot of people thought the architects went in with that in mind. Actually, it was an accident.
Really?
So there was no, if we build it.
There was no intention of building it that way.
It just happened to evolve like that, and just the way it was designed. But it's an open-air stadium.
Right.
The Kingdom back then was pretty loud, but it wasn't like what we've got now. And people thought, they designed it to be that way. But
gotcha.
But the fans at that point, we weren't quite the loudest fans yet in the entire country. So when that happened, and that's one of my favorite sports moments, because I was sitting there with my best friend. We were 7-9. We had no business being in the playoffs. We were hosting the New Orleans Saints.
Who dat?
Right, and I know that's right. You're saying, and so when that's happening, I'm 7 rows back in the end zone, and I'm watching Marshawn literally like take these guys and move them like they're little kids, and he's coming at us, and you can feel the whole place start shaking. And
there was actually a reading on the Richter scale.
So exactly right, yeah. And Husky, right down the street there, you got UW, and it registered on the Richter scale as an earthquake, and that's why if you look at it, they dub it the Beastquake, and that's where he really solidified his name, Beast Mode, because that's where it happened. But
that's incredible.
But the design was not intended for us to be the loudest. It just we are, because of the passion, and that's where a lot of what I do. When I'm there, and I'm glad I ran into this guy because he has the same kind of 12-man passion. Let's go.
Let's make Acrisure set off Caltech and see what happens.
Well, so during one of the playoff games, I guess somebody said that it actually shook.
I believe that.
It actually shook.
I really did.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have noticed.
I think no, but
my head was completely somewhere else.
I didn't notice when it happened in Seattle,
time.
But I mean, when somebody told us that, it was like, oh, that's awesome. But because
that makes me a firm believer in the fans have a huge impact
they do. I agree.
on any team.
Yeah.
Like, they'll have an impact themselves, even if there were no fans in the arena or the stadium. But adding fans in and the energy level that they bring, it amps it up even more.
So the players were feeding off that, obviously.
Absolutely.
They were digging it. They were loving it.
Like, every night I would hear either one or two players say, man, the fans here are great. They're out there, they're cheering. And a lot of times I heard the coach saying, like, our fans are great. We love playing for them.
That's you talked about press conferences and things, but you're on the plane with them. You backstage. Like, if you can, what was that plane ride back from Hershey, for example? What were they talking about? What was the vibe? What was happening?
Well, I'll tell you, the plane ride back from Hershey was drastically different than the one to Hershey.
Oh, well, yeah. I could see that.
Just, being around the guys, first of all, heading to Hershey, as you might think, being up 2-0, they're vibing, they're loose, they're laughing. But the plane ride back, it was, a little solemn, obviously, now being down 3-2. But it was, from what I saw, it was still lively. People were still going about their business, playing games, chatting. I honestly didn't really hear anything like distinctively what anyone was saying. But as far as the mood, obviously there is that sense of being down, but not out. Definitely not out.
Well, they had to know they were coming home to family, and we weren't
exactly.
We weren't going to let them down. Did they know we were going to be at the airport when they got back?
Great question, Dave.
I honestly don't know.
Like, did you know? Were you?
I figured word got out somehow. If it did, I don't know who spread the word, but
FlightAware. Seriously, we just logged on to FlightAware and looked for the most obvious one.
There's the dedication from the fans, like not just seeking out someone on the inside, but just tracking the flights on your own. That just shows how dedicated y'all are to the sports team.
Well, it was easy to do, I think, especially as we talked about it last episode, but the heart of the team as we watched them, we were down some games and then they would fight back and win those games. I remember going through the season, really impressed, especially leading up to the playoffs where, we had to win some really crucial games to stay in the hunt for the first place. And then, obviously we missed it by one game, that first place spot. Okay. And, whatever.
By one point.
By one, I know, it was ridiculous. But we get into the playoffs, and I felt like I knew we were going to go deep, but the heart of the team was there was bend but no break. It was we're gonna do what we have to do to win. We talked about the Calgary game, the triple overtime, basically playing till midnight. That was a big one for me. I think next to the Beastquake game, honestly, that triple overtime game to me was one of my favorite sports memories because of just the dedication, the fight.
Exactly.
All the stuff that had happened. And they won the games prior. We had do or die games prior to that.
Was our 4th do or die game, I think.
I mean, you want to talk about stress.
Hold on, my heart rate's going back up again.
To relive this stuff, my palms get
that just
sweaty.
Means y'all are true fans.
We are, though.
Right?
Well, here we
are.
Dave, you didn't miss a game?
I had to miss a couple, but I watched them on TV. I travel a little bit for work sometimes.
That's right.
So
that's right.
My hotel room neighbors would hear me yelling and screaming at my laptop watching AHL Network, watching the games. I want to know. So let's get back to this is full time, right?
Yes.
But the season is only the season. What does the team videographer do when the guys aren't skating and shooting and playing?
Prepare for next season.
What does that mean? You got to load the film in? Like what is?
No, they don't do that. It's digital now, man. There is no film to load in.
You got to put the SD card in. Like what does prepare mean?
So obviously it's a lot less filming. It's more planning and taking what we learned from the previous season and parlaying that into what works, what doesn't work, and how can we do better.
What are you going to do different this season?
You're definitely going to see a lot more video elements. A lot of what you saw on the video board last year. There was a lot of graphics. Obviously, you'll still see graphics, but we're trying to kind of amp it up to an NHL-ish level. We're trying to be the best AHL team that we can. Even though we're a minor league team, we still want to be the caliber of an NHL team.
Well, there's that feeling that production's there.
And that's what
It's
we're
there.
going for, and that's great that
It's there.
y'all kind of picked that up.
And we talked about it, but it just kept getting better as the season progressed.
It did. You
really
could definitely
did. Yeah.
tell once you guys figured out also like we did that, something's going on here.
Yeah.
You could see that as the caliber of play was going up, the caliber of production was going right along with it.
We had to keep right up with the level of the players, and also keep up with your energy. Not only were we trying to generate your energy, we're also trying to match your energy.
That's interesting.
And then amp it up even more. So
I know that
that's what you're going to see.
The first part of the season when Action finally opened and we're finally there, and the opening video presentation was the same game after game after game, and then all of a sudden it was different. And then all of a sudden, it was different every time.
Yeah, that's cool.
And
That was really cool.
These guys are working overtime.
And the
to get
music
this
was
done.
really good.
Yeah.
Well, I can't take all that credit because all those videos were made by a wonderful group called Pret Entertainment Group. They're awesome guys. We love working with them. But the difference is when the season first started, during the regular season, we didn't have that much footage to go on.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We didn't have that much, time to, prepare and actually have, good production day. So once playoffs started, all of a sudden we have this library of footage that I captured. So I sent my footage to PEG, and they were able to create these great intro videos that y'all saw during the playoffs. As the playoffs went on, we got even more footage, and I got even better shots, and that's what they inserted into those
And
videos.
so that's your stuff that we're seeing, obviously,
Yes.
just so everybody knows.
Yeah.
And then your stuff is also, are you doing the Instagram? Like, I see your work, I follow you, and I follow the official, obviously, Firebirds Instagram and all that stuff, YouTube and whatnot. So that's you.
Some of the videos you'll see on social media, and when I say social media, I mean Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Some of the videos I do end up on social media, but I'd say like 95% of that material is done by my wonderful coworker Becky.
Okay,
She's
I know
our
her.
social
Yeah,
media
she's great.
coordinator.
Yeah,
We've met her.
Love
She's
the
wonderful.
things that she does. Like,
Yeah, she's good.
She comes up with ideas I could never think of.
Okay.
She's young and she's got energy.
Exactly. She has a lot more energy than I have.
Yeah.
Like our summer series that we did called Tenny's Talks.
I was going to say, you did that, didn't you?
Can we
That's all
talk
you.
about that a little bit?
I filmed like on the side when you saw Riker Evans in the pool
Yep.
from the side. That was my angle.
Okay.
Everything else was Becky.
Wow.
She was the main, camera operator. She conceived that idea. She came up with the idea to make it like a tropical vibe.
Yeah, it was funny.
We bought a bunch of like inflatable.
I mean, it was
the palm
perfectly
trees.
done.
It was hysterical. And honestly, going into it, I wasn't sure how it was going to pan out, but I guess other YouTubers are doing similar kind of.
I noticed a
interview
couple of
series.
teams that do something not nearly as good, but similar.
But I guess it was a thing out there, and the way that she produced that, it turned out great.
It did. I was
go
curious.
ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just curious. Like, how did we figure out who was going to be? Like, how did we know it was going to be like Tenny's Talk? Like, how did or couldn't it could have been anybody else? But did he raise his
Right.
hand and say,
It was-
"I want to do this," or did they?
From what I heard, it was Matt Tennyson's idea. Like, he just kind of quipped one day, "Hey, it would be funny to do a little, interview show by the pool, sipping, Mai Tai or something." Obviously, we can't film anyone, sipping alcohol. So, and that kind of, evolved in the creative team's minds, and really came up with the idea of, let's make it, Tenny's Talks, and he kind of, interviews the players, and they were like, wouldn't it be fun if we had someone in a pool?
So it just
in a little
started.
kiddie pool.
It was- that
It
was
just
good.
snowballed and snowballed.
was good.
And that's
It
how
took
came
me
out.
till episode like 9 to figure out you filmed it all in one day.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And I went back. I'm like, and you can notice like the position of the sun.
yeah.
I'm like, oh man, I need to go take a nap. I don't know what's wrong with me.
You would think that, we're inflating all that stuff.
Yeah.
We're putting Riker in the pool for one interview, and then we have to all pack it in.
That's true.
And then
Yeah,
the next
that
day we
makes
interview.
sense.
No, those were all shot in a span of maybe
So
4 hours.
I think the goal then for our show is to get Tenny in the seat at some point, and
We should.
I want to put it on him.
I'm going to ask him some of those questions.
Honestly, I think
Yeah.
it would be. I think that would be fun to put him under the microscope for a second and
I think he'd
interview
be a
him.
great guest.
I think he'd be amazing because he does a great job. He's very, he's the straight guy, and he's just giving you this monotone sort of questions, and he's not, and you can see him smile from time to time and not try to break too much, which was great. So it came off really well, and then of course Riker's in the back just kind of just flopping around doing his thing.
Everyone loved Riker in the back.
He did great.
They were like,
He did
Riker
great.
should have his own show.
Yeah.
I feel sorry, though, for Ian McKinnon.
Why?
Because to a man,
Yes.
nobody on the team would want him to date their sister.
So what is the deal with that? Let's not. Can we talk about that?
Why is getting sold out?
Is he
I
a
don't
ladies'
know.
man like they talk about?
I
And
don't
like,
know.
what is his deal?
Obviously, it's a camaraderie
It's
that I can't
hilarious.
speak for between
Right.
the guys that I don't see.
They know
but
him,
I
but-
guess they don't want them. They don't want him dating their sister.
Clearly, but it is
Clearly.
resound hard no.
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
he's
no.
not the guy. And everybody kept saying like, okay, so I think it was Wright was like the guy that everybody seemed to be comfortable with. He must be just like a genuine like
a nice,
like a super nice
guy. Nobody
He
ain't no
is.
time for nice guys.
Yeah, I guess.
He kind of keeps to himself. He's really calm. He's he kind of keeps in the background. He doesn't really talk as much as
Okay.
a Joey Decord or
Yeah.
Andrew Polorowski. But when you do talk to him, he's one of the nicest guys.
That's what I kept getting. I'm like, wow, he just must be a sweetheart.
yeah.
So now you get to see these guys, obviously, in a different context than any of us do, right? Because I'm sure you are also capturing practice video and workout video and all of the other things that we see. So you get a chance to interact with them, you get a chance to talk to them. My personal view, just from the stands, is they all seem like just plain old good guys.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't spot an a-hole among them. And believe me, I try. I'm like, that guy's got to be a dick. But no.
Yeah, right.
So are they just, luckily, fortunately, coincidentally, a nice group of guys?
Yeah, it pretty much is like, the stars aligning. Like in my opinion, and it kind of agrees with yours, that there was not, a
I haven't seen
knucklehead
the ego
amongst
or
them.
anything.
No, and I think it also stems from the fact that at the beginning of last season, there was no Acrisure Arena. There was no home for the Firebirds. So they spent that first 2 months up in Seattle, locked in a hotel, and doing, obviously the road games, but they would also do a couple of home games in Seattle.
Yeah.
So during that time, they got to know each other really well.
More than probably any regular team,
Pretty
right?
much.
Because they had to lean on each other. It was like this
Exactly.
band of brothers sort of thing.
None of them really lived up there. They couldn't, split and go to their respective homes.
Yeah.
They lived with each other
Yeah.
for that, long span of time. Not really, long compared to the rest of the season, but that's where I think the camaraderie stems from, is that time together.
So that brings up a thought, though. You said Band of Brothers,
Yeah.
and I just 20 years later actually watched that show.
Such a good series.
And I started, as you were answering that, I before you said, I was thinking Band of Brothers, because now going into season 2, some of our brothers are gone to other places. We've got a core group left. But now come the replacements, if you remember from the show.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a hard
had to get
time
integrated
working their
into-
way
yeah.
into the
Yeah.
into the fish tank. So what I guess I don't know that you would know this, but you're around them. How do you think that's going to go?
I mean, I think it goes just the same way this season went. You have your core group of veterans who had been around the AHL and the NHL, so they know their way around. You have the secondary group, which is your, Andrew Polorowskis, your, Ian McKinnons, those who aren't really veterans, but they've been around the block. And then you get this new group of rookies who, don't know what to do. But I think we have, not just with the players, but with the coaching staff and, the support staff behind them, I think we have a good group in the staff that can show them the way and, make them feel comfortable. In fact, I think we had, I forgot what his title was, and I forgot what the gentleman's name, but along the road, we had a development coach who was there to kind of show the way for the rookies. Like, this is how you book your hotel. This is how you get your roommate. This is how you stay. This is how you act. This is what you do.
Can we
for
talk about
meals.
all those things? Because I don't know how any of those things
There's not
happen.
a lot that I know, but
Yeah.
so, as far as like these now, fresh rookies coming in this next season that are kind of, going to replace, so to speak, the places that are left by the players that, have been signed to other teams, I think they'll fit in well, not just from the players making them feel comfortable and getting that, creating that camaraderie with them, but also the coaching staff. We got a great coaching staff, as you know, and then the support staff that are they know what to do and they know how to, get them into this organization.
So you were talking about the rookies and then them getting integrated. I know that the training camp up in Seattle is taking place. There's some stuff going on. They're just starting. Yep. Yeah. And have you been around the newbies? Have you seen them? What are you most excited for? Who are you excited for going in? Like, can you talk about any of that? Have you been around those guys at all?
The only rookies that have been around are the ones that came on the road with us in Hershey that didn't get a bunch of playing time. They practiced with the squad obviously, but they didn't get a lot of playing time during the playoffs. Some of them are going to be with us. Some of them are going to be either down in Kansas City or they're going to be down in the juniors. But
you haven't seen any of the new guys.
The new ones. They're still being recently.
Okay,
not yet.
All right, I was just
Curry and Knockbauer. I'm just going to call him Nacho because
like Jack LaFontaine, we just signed.
Yep.
All those guys, I believe, are in Seattle right now.
Yep.
I don't think we're going to see any of them until just before Game 1.
Wow.
Because there's a training camp in Seattle, and then they narrow it down to the 23-man roster for the Kraken.
Okay.
And those who didn't make that roster are going to come down to us and try and make the Firebirds roster.
That makes sense.
Which is another 23-man.
That makes sense. Okay, yeah, I knew there was that process, and I was curious around that a little bit and to see how much and I assumed you're around these guys a lot, and I think during the season you are. I just wasn't sure off season, what that looks like for you. I know you've been here.
Off season, I don't see them at all, honestly,
okay, yeah.
Unless some of them live here in the valley. Most of them don't.
Okay,
but once in a while they'll come down to the arena, for a photo shoot or something. But that's really it.
How did they, what's your take on how do they integrate into the desert? I know a lot of these guys are coming from the Midwest. They're coming from Canada. They're coming from some pretty cold places.
Yeah.
So what was that like? I mean, you probably heard some chatter, like you said, you're hearing the talks in the locker room, on the buses, on the planes about, the valley. How did the valley strike them, and how did they, respond to it? Like,
one 4-letter word, golf.
Yeah, that seems to be the big one.
Yep.
That seems to be the big one.
So many times have they talked about their golf game, and sometimes we'll ask them in front of the camera, oh, who do you think who's the worst on the golf course? That was another question during Tenny's talk.
And we're trying
who do you think
who's the best? I can't
who's the
remember
best? Who's the worst?
I hear so Cole Lynn, I think, was like he's top. He's kind of up in
That's
there.
From what I remember,
Yeah, he seems.
He's Cameron Hughes.
Hughes, I heard, has a really good game too. That's right. Yeah.
And I'm not really into golf. I'm into mini golf, but
there's a little bit of that here. I'm not sure.
Like they'll be in the lounge. They'll watch golf on TV.
Okay, so
they're talking about their golf swing and like, oh, I have this handicap and all this golf jargon that I don't even know. But they, from what I collected, they were really excited to get their golf game on here in the Palm Springs area.
We've got fun fact, being a real estate agent, I had to figure out real quickly like all of the nuances. We have the most golf courses per capita. We have over 128 golf courses in the most dense area, and so you can't but throw a rock across the freeway and not hit a golf course. Exactly. We live in the area where there's you can play at night. I mean, there's a place it's called the Lights. Mm-hmm. It's in North Indio. The Muni, people will call it. And
when he says we live, not together.
Yeah, no.
Just near each other.
Our communities are really... Actually, that was hilarious when I found that out. Yeah. So not only are we...
We're like only 2 communities over.
We're literally 2 communities over. So we would carpool to the watch parties, but yeah.
And he would be our designated driver back.
Well, I try to be responsible.
I appreciate you.
Good for you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
But yeah, that's me too. I think, being from the Northwest, having that, our accessibility to golf and those things was very limited because of the weather, obviously. But you get down here, and now we're getting into the good season, right? This is why people come here. The weather's getting really good. You walked out this morning, and like, oh, that cool breeze hits you. The sun's out every day, so it's like, let's go play golf. And so I was curious. I know that's a big thing for them. I was just,
definitely.
And
I'm sure it's a nice weather too, because most of these guys are from Canada, so they're used to nothing but cold, and they come down here and it's a completely different, weather change. Yeah. So I'm sure, some of them enjoy it.
How about you? You been out here before? Was the desert a place that you had been before?
The last time I was out here, I was probably 5 or 6 years old.
Wow. So how did you like coming
From
out
where?
here? Oh,
so I grew up in Irvine. Lived there until I was 21. Then I moved to LA to go to film school, and then eventually got my bachelor's degree. And then I went from there to here. So I'd never lived out in obviously I've lived in California my whole life, and it's a complete desert, but I've never lived in the desert until now. So it's been a complete culture shock for me, honestly, moving from the suburbs to the city and now the desert. Oh, yeah. I have to get used to, sand being on my car all the time, and
and in your ears and in your shoes.
And I learned the term haboob.
Oh yeah,
what a haboob was.
I learned that.
It's not
as well.
nearly as pleasant as you make it sound.
But yeah, it's obviously it takes some getting used to. But I'm used to the hot weather. I'm not used to the triple digits that we get every 3 months in the year. But it's nice. I love being in big wide open spaces. I'm not a big fan of living in the city, so I like it. I love it out here. 3 months out of the year of it being hot, I'd say that's a small sacrifice of.
I agree.
Well worth it.
Yeah, I agree.
Well worth it.
So what do you like to do when you're out here?
When I'm out here and I'm not working, I like to catch up on all the sleep that I lose during the season.
Okay. Do you like I don't know, go hiking, pickleball or golf? Like, what do you like? What are there activities? Is there a place you like to go eat? Is like El Paseo a thing for you? Like,
honestly, it's all of that. It's more like exploring the area, because I'm still not used to the area. I've only been here since December, so I'm still doing a lot of exploring. I do love hiking, so I'm looking for good hiking spots.
Plenty of them.
I'm sure there
Stay
are.
off the bumping grind.
yeah. It's a tough one, but
I love food. Obviously, I like to find the good food places.
What's your place out here?
There you go.
Just recently, as we mentioned before we went on the air, my buddy Jason took me to a ramen place off of Gene Autry Drive. Great ramen. Being from California, obviously I fell in love with Mexican food, so any good Mexican place is good for me.
There's some good spots out here. Being in India, there's some stuff. I mean, there's some great taco places. Man, and I think my brother-in-law, he was out here a couple of years before I was, and we were getting ready to come out. And he kind of prepared me for that, but he said, "Man, listen, here's the cool part about the valley," and he was spot on. It's you can go down the 10, you can go down Fred Waring, you can go down these main drags, right? But really, it's when you take these offshoots or you find these little hole in the wall places, or that's these little nuances of the valley, these little corners that you need to explore. Yeah. And if somebody says, "Dude, you need to go try this place," like you go try that. You got to go try that place. Like you need to go do this thing. You got to go try this thing, because it just never ends. And I can tell you what, there's never enough restaurants here to try. I mean, there's so many. Like there's not enough time to explore them all. One of the coolest places that I think keeps striking me. I went to the Ritz-Carlton.
Oh,
now hold on. I'm a little bougie at times.
Your son's over there going, "I didn't get to go."
Yeah, no, I think you went. You didn't go?
No.
I think we left the kiddies at home.
The invite, Dad.
Yeah,
put some food on the floor for him and took off. Yeah.
So it was cool because my brother-in-law, he's really smart about really finding the nuances. But he's like, let's go at happy hour, because they got a great burger at happy hour. You go to the bar, you walk in, the valet comes, they take your car, you go do the thing, and it's really, really nice. It feels classy. You walk in, immediately you're like, I'm going to see a Kardashian walking down the hall. Absolutely. That kind of stuff, which is cool. But then we had a burger. Everybody was, it wasn't pretentious. That's one thing that I always love about the Valley is if you want to get a little bougie, if you will, but there's no air about it. Everybody's very casual. And we are hanging out, having a burger, hanging out at the bar area. And then the best part is we step outside. And they got this beautiful pool outside. They got the outdoor bar. They've got then these palm trees that are all lit up. And then you just keep exploring. And then the view from the scenic deck area, you can see
breathtaking.
Oh my gosh! Well, and
Nice.
and being a photographer, videographer, you'll appreciate it because the way that you can just see for as long as the eye can catch, and go around sunset, obviously. But again, it's one of the most unique things that I saw, and I just stood there. And I know it sounds corny.
Taking it in.
I was drinking it in, as Ron Burgundy would say. I'm just drinking it in, And but I'm just standing there, and that was kind of one of those moments. Again, I'd been here a couple of years already, but I was like, man, like this is special. The Valley has these places that will just make you go, holy cow. Yeah. So I recommend, get out there.
That sounds amazing.
It is. It really is. And again, it was none of this like, I don't belong here sort of feeling, No, everybody's just like, having a good time, enjoying themselves, really relaxed.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a great time. I think
that's cool.
You and Jason should go.
When he's up here, absolutely.
That's awesome.
All right, so I want to go back. I was just so like fascinated by your background. So you went to film school.
Yes.
Right? And so you don't just go to film school. You got to get into film school.
Not necessarily.
Where did you went to Northridge?
So first I moved to LA and went to the Los Angeles Film School.
Okay.
So, you don't have to you apply obviously to get into a school. Here I just applied and I got in. That was strictly for film. And at the time they were only offering associate's degrees. And I thought that's all that I needed. But that's where I learned how to tell a story through film. That's where I honed my craft on how to tell a story linearly, if that's a word.
Was that why you went, though? Did you want to tell stories?
At the time, I couldn't really afford to go to college. I went there, and if I could share a little bit of tidbit, you've probably heard of the series, but my second month there, it was my editing class. My editing teacher, his name was Kyle Newacek, another Kyle.
Awesome, strong name.
And he and I got to talking during the month, and he kind of mentioned, oh, yeah, I think this is going to be my last month teaching here because my comedy group and I were trying to pitch this TV show, and I think Comedy Central is going to pick it up. And I was like, oh, what's the TV show? And he said, Workaholics.
Oh, that's a great show.
They picked it up.
And they obviously picked it up, and he was
show.
gone the next month. So I got to hang out with one of the co-creators of Workaholics.
How cool.
And he taught me most of what I do in my editing today. He's a great editor, and I admire the guy. So went to the LA Film School. I graduated 2 years later with my associates, and then I started working off and on various reality shows. I worked on my first job was a reality show called Mobbed with Howie Mandel. No one's heard of it. It lasted like 11 episodes. Worked on Hell's Kitchen for a hot minute.
Okay.
Worked on a couple of game shows, and then I got the job on the Marie Osmond talk show for the Hallmark Channel. That was about a 6-month job, and then I was like, you know what? This isn't paying the bills. I need a regular job. So I just got a job at Universal Studios Hollywood.
Tour guide? What were you doing?
Working at the tram, but I wasn't the tour guide. I was the guy who would open the door, let the people in, close the door, and that I just needed that to pay the bills. And then one day I decided, you know what? I need to go back to school. I need to get my bachelor's degree.
How old were you when you were doing all this?
This was 2016, so I was 28.
Okay, you're right at that
27,
age.
28.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know
That's
what?
the
I
get
need
serious
to do something.
age.
Yeah, you're starting
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and unfortunately, the associate's degree that I had from the LA Film School, I couldn't use that to transfer. So I had to start all over again.
No.
I went to Los Angeles Valley College and did the community college route. That's where I started to learn broadcast television. So that's where I learned the switchers, how to switch between cameras, and how to direct TV cameras. Did that for 2 years. Then I transferred out to Cal State Northridge. and that's where I got my bachelor's degree.
So you spend enough time in the valley there to know how hot it gets sometimes.
Oh,
so
yeah.
This is mild change.
A little bit hotter than it gets in the
So
area.
do you, now that you've got all that experience and now you've got all of this real world life experience, do you have it in you to tell a story? Is there a story you want to tell?
There is. Are you talking about my personal story, or
I'm talking about your ability to take a story and put it out for the world to see. Is there a story you want to tell?
You know, as a filmmaker, you always have that desire to tell a story. Like, every so often I'll daydream, like, oh, it would be great to make this story into a movie or make this story into a documentary. For me, I always shift towards documentaries because, one, they're easier to make than films.
That's true.
But two, you can use any sort of filmmaking style, be it different kinds of frame rates, different kinds of colors. It's just putting random footage together, but still telling a story, still telling a subject. So, I always have the desire to tell a story. All you really need is a subject and footage.
And do you watch stories, movies, read books, whatever? What kind of eye then do you like? Can you even enjoy movies now that you've seen behind the curtain?
So I can. I can only really enjoy them as a movie watcher the first time I watch it. But then when I watch it a second time and any time thereafter, I'm looking for, tells, or I'm looking for things that, oh, that's what that meant. Oh, maybe that could have been done better. I try not to critique because I'm no Roger Ebert. I'm just, a guy watching films. But
pretty sure that's what Roger Ebert was. But yeah.
Basically.
But that's my approach. Is the first time I watch it as a fan, but then the second time I'm watching it, I'm now watching it as a filmmaker. Like, oh, that's what that meant, and I start to understand the film a lot more.
What movie has you most captivated, that you've seen the most times and find something different? Most people say The Godfather. Shawshank Redemption is another one that people say. But
Fight Club.
Fight Club.
I'm telling you, if you got to watch Fight Club.
I've seen it
10 times before you really soak that in and go, I get it now.
I actually couldn't see when it first came out because I wasn't old enough.
Oy.
But
Okay, no, let's go.
When I was in the LA Film School, that was actually some of the lesson plans. They would show us movies. Like my mythology professor at the LA Film School was like, okay, today class we're going to watch The Wizard of Oz. And we watched The Wizard of Oz, and that was the plan. The next day he was like, okay, we're going to watch The Wizard of Oz again. And he puts in Apocalypse Now because the message he was trying to get across is the story and the story pattern between Wizard of Oz and
Very
Apocalypse
much,
Now
yeah.
are kind of similar.
Well, there's only 7 stories, right? There's only 7 themes, right? 7 stories you can tell.
And
Right.
then you just
And Shakespeare told them all already, so it's just all a rehash.
And then I got to see Fight Club for the first time because it was part of the criteria
man.
one of those classes. But to answer your question, I think the movie that really captivated me the most is another movie that I saw during the LA Film School is American Beauty.
Yes.
that's a good one.
Now,
That's a good
There's
one.
a lot going on there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, we watched it for the first time and then we went back and analyzed it. The one scene that captured me the most is towards the beginning, you see Lester Burnham sitting in his office and he's getting ready to leave. There's a shot from, I believe, over his shoulder, and you see his reflection in his computer. But what's on his computer screen, you see his reflection of his face, but you also see the computer screen. You see these lines going up and down. I think they're like numbers and letters or whatnot. And the reason why, I think it was either the director, Sam Mendes, or the director of photography, I forgot who it was, that was an actual choice because it's supposed to symbolize, it feels like he's in a prison, being in that office and being this just drab office worker. And I was like, wow,
That's really good.
that is something that I never would have seen. And see, I look for those tells in movies nowadays. Like, why is this scene set up the way it is? Why does it look this way?
There are no, because in college I studied film as well, and I learned there are no accidents. Everything you see,
everything is a
for a
choice.
reason. Billy Wilder, Alfred Hitchcock were masters at every single little thing. So like when I watch movies, I enjoy it the first time, and then second,
Easter
third,
egg
fourth
hunting
time,
after
like,
that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you just Easter egg hunt. Like,
Well, and
what's
that's why I
next?
enjoyed those type of movies. I'm like you guys. I didn't study, but I mean, I'm a movie buff guy where I love all genres, but I'm looking.
Right.
I love art history. I love literature. I love Shakespeare. I love all that stuff. I got it. I understood it when I went to college. I got it. It just made sense to me. So when I watch movies, I'm watching it through that lens, and then I'm looking for that sub meaning and the look. And then so when you go back and watch a movie again, you're kind of like, okay, now it's starting to make it's really making sense.
Spoiler alert for anybody listening: Fight Club, obviously. What's his nuts' character?
Brad Pitt or
Brad Pitt
okay.
is obviously a figment of his imagination.
Yeah.
But it was just within the last 3 weeks that I also discovered Helena Bonham Carter's character
was also
a figment of his imagination.
Yep.
And so you watch it again and you look at all of the insanity.
Yeah, this guy's going through some stuff.
Like, especially there's one scene, and you'll remember it, when Edward Norton is in the hallway or the kitchen or something, and Brad Pitt is going to town on Helena Bonham Carter. He's got gloves on and whatnot. What was going on? Because none of them were there.
I'm sure we don't want to.
Yeah, no. But that's that's why I love to talk to people that really actually studied film.
Yeah.
That can who.
Well, if you pay attention to that stuff, and I think that's part of I'm going to circle back to hockey. When as a sports guy, I didn't know anything about hockey going into this, and I'm not making it about me, but it's that I'm approaching these type of things with that lens, that eye.
Nice.
When I'm watching you, when I'm watching and listening to Jason, and when I'm the production, like I'm not just, and I hate that I do that. My wife, I drive her crazy because she's like, how do you see this? How do you see that? And like I'm just always, my brain can't turn off. My eye can't turn off.
I know that feeling.
Okay, good. So I'm in the like-minded group.
Yeah,
This is great. I'm in with my people. So when I'm going into the arena, and that's the cool part. So when we're in there and I'm watching the boys play, and I'm watching the production, I'm not just seeing the game. I'm looking at the game within the games.
Wow.
And I'm watching even the fans. I'm paying attention to what's going on there. You can feel the vibe in the room, in the whole arena, like all of that. And I think it would, as a whole, this whole season was the best drama. It was the best drama. It was the best movie I'd ever been. Number one, to be front row, for us to be front row and participate. That must have
been incredible.
To participate in it was something I'll never forget, and to be part of it, it was amazing.
Such as we were,
yeah. And then to just have that unfold in front of us, this amazing play, this amazing movie that happened in front of us, and to live it. I think when it was over, that was the most shocking, the most I went inward for almost 2 days.
Yeah, there was a bit of post-ictal
it was, and I almost want to watch it again because I want to digest it over, but it was so impactful, and there were so many layers to what happened during the season between the production, the fans, the players, how we got there, how oh man, we got to play the series out to the last game each round, but it was the drama was there, the excitement was there, and yes, it didn't end it the way we wanted to, but
you don't see that often.
You don't
in sports.
So I think coming from that cinematic sort of lens, and we watched it, and to sit there, we got spoiled. We were freaking spoiled.
Do you think season 2 can live up to that?
I mean, obviously, season 2 living up to season 1, it's least likely to live up to that exact.
There's no way.
Same,
I don't see how. You know what I mean? It's like, how do you do that again?
But we didn't see this coming either.
But this was brand new.
Yeah.
Was brand new. So there's an expectation now. You know what I mean? Like now, if we do it, we're gonna kind of go, yeah, we've been here before, or yeah, we've done this before. Right. There was nothing there before. There was nothing, not even an arena. It was
so now
sand.
There is definitely an expectation, and you've been in production meetings, I'm sure. What is the consensus about 2.0 for the production? Because now there's an expectation, and now you gotta, like everybody else, you gotta raise it up a little bit.
Right.
What does this season look like?
This season, we're looking for it to be better production-wise. Like I said, you're going to see a lot more video elements, a lot more moving parts, a lot more dynamic things than we had in season 1.
Can you give us a hint, like what that means?
I can't really tell yet.
Okay.
You'll just have to wait and see.
Well, we'll be there to see.
Get tickets.
Yeah.
It's a good plug.
But again, like I said, our aim is to be at an NHL caliber team, and try and of course, be over the top of these other AHL teams. Not to say that they have their own, good production, and they're all fantastic.
No, they're not. I watched a couple of Wild games. We watched a couple of the Iowa Wild when the Firebirds are playing, and their production's terrible. Yeah.
We're spoiled. I told you we're spoiled.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But, we created that for ourselves, but, that's what we want. We want to give you the best show. Obviously, you're going to get, two separate shows. You're going to get a show from the players. Obviously, we can't control the outcome, but the things that we can control is what you see and hear when you come inside and what you see and hear when you leave. And the level that we're shooting for is so high that we want to create those moments that's going to make y'all want to come back for more.
Yeah, well,
did anything get cut? Yeah. Did you look back and laugh and go, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore?
A few things did get cut. I can't say specifically. There's also a few things that we have tweaked and that are going to come back and it'll be a little better.
That's awesome. Well, we had talked about also the cool elements that just organically happen, like when we would sing Country Roads.
Yeah.
That was an accident.
Right.
But
it worked.
But it worked.
It's a thing.
It's a thing, and it's a big thing. We've got people, in our section especially, his name's Rob Kelly. I mean, that guy and that song, if you're not up singing with him, our section does it. Everybody does. But I think what it did was, it was really cool. I think he kind of felt like family. That was the takeaway that I, from the season, part of the digest process was like, there was a family. Dave and I became friends. We didn't know each other before this.
And I love that story.
I walked up, and there he was. He was sitting right, in the front aisle. He big smile on his face. He had his jersey on. And I just introduced myself. I was like, I better introduce myself. I'm going to be here all season, so you guys just get ready. And
it's like meeting when you move into a new neighborhood, you got to meet your neighbors.
So I did. And he was so just energy and like, yeah, man, how are you doing? And the guy sitting next to me, Mike, same thing, and everybody around us, Rob and his wife, and we all just started to create this friendship.
That was the goal. That was the goal.
You did
with
it.
Firebirds.
Yeah. You did
was
it.
To bring the value.
You did it.
And it did in spectacular fashion.
Yeah, man.
Form. I remember early in the season, I was at Winco in North Indio, and I'm walking in the store, and I see this guy. I'm like, that guy looks familiar, but I can't really place him. I kept walking. And I was like staring at him, so I must have been like some weirdo.
It was creepy. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little creepy.
And I'm like, whatever. And I know how to keep walking so as not to look too creepy. And he called my name. I'm like, and because when you see someone out of context,
you don't know who the hell they are.
And we sat in that parking lot.
We were in regular clothes.
Half an hour.
Yeah, so we were in regular clothes. Wow. I was not suited up, obviously, because I only wear it for the games. And he didn't have his jersey on.
You don't wear that suit just
I should actually. I've done it one time after a game. I went into Winco. I told my wife, I said, I'm going to go in there because I was hungry. I needed a sandwich, man.
Yeah, air quotes. Yeah, that's why I was hungry.
I was like, screw it. I'm going to go do it. And then I just kind of, But anyway, it was hilarious because we weren't in the arena. We weren't in our game gear,
and we didn't really know each other.
And we were just dressed in
we were there for like half an hour talking.
Then we just sat out there,
about hockey. But then we started talking about other stuff.
Yeah, it was
and
cool.
Then realized, we might be onto something here.
Yeah, it was neat. And then
I think that is one of probably 10,000 similar stories from all around all the other sections around the arena. And
I love hearing stories like that.
I love the fact, and I'm not going to get all whatever, but. When you walk into Acrisure, it doesn't matter what color you are, how much money you make, who you love, who you voted for. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
We all have one central focus, and it brings our little microcosm of society together. And I can't help to think that if we could just get our shit together and figure out how, as a let's start as a city, which we've done, and maybe a state and maybe a country, figure out how to do it, we might
turn things around a little
not
bit.
fall off the cliff
I'm with you
anytime
on
soon.
that 100%.
Yeah.
I think that's been the most fun aspect is when, I've got my son, I got my nephew here, and I love bringing them into the arena, and I love sharing those moments because for 3 hours, you guys have created something. It's hard not to get emotional a little bit because, no, it's true. But I mean, when you go into that place, it's a special place. And there's a memory that gets created. They've done a great job across the board, with just the aesthetics. But you walk in, and the games are always entertaining. The production's always good. But those shared moments, sports does that for people, and I hate when people downgrade sports because they think it's just like you have to be a Neanderthal to play it, and you have to be kind of brain dead, and it's like, no, there's appreciation and there's more to it. There's something about showing up, having that shared experience. We're rooting for the one thing to happen. And then we walk away. I mean, you're hugging strangers.
Yeah.
Outside the arena, I had these guys come up to me, and I'm hugging and high-fiving people I don't even know. And I love every minute of that. And
It's that shared passion.
it
for that
really
one
is,
thing.
man. It's so
One
much
one
fun.
team.
And I don't think
So well
any
said.
other
Love it.
professional sport. I've been to Ducks games. I've been to Kings games. I've been to NFL games. I've even went to a baseball game by accident one time. And I've never seen. I lived in Baltimore, and the Orioles were playing, and my buddy was in town. He wanted to go, so we went.
All
And
right, fine.
I'm like, I'm not, whatever.
I got nothing going on for
but,
5 hours.
I've never
hours.
Not
seen.
anymore.
like 3.
We got the new
It
rule.
feels like 5 hours.
We got the new rule.
But I've never seen this kind of, and early on when the Ducks, in the early '90s when the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim were brand new, I thought there might be some, but it kind of didn't pan out that way for whatever reason. I don't know. So I am so deeply grateful that we have this thing, and this thing is what this thing is.
Yeah.
And I think we all got lucky. Are you going to be working on October 1st when the Ducks are in town? Or are you going to be able to enjoy the game?
I will be there for the Coyotes Ducks games, just capturing content of the Ducks and the Coyotes. But I think I'm going to enjoy that in a different perspective. One, from a videographer's perspective, but two, as a Ducks fan.
Are you going to have your Ducks gear on?
One, I'm probably not going to wear that because I'll be working, but I'm definitely going to be in a Ducks mind because here I am. I'm going to be ice level with my favorite childhood, hockey team. One of my dreams is to work for the Ducks in any kind of capacity. So it's like here I am at a professional arena. I'm going to be filming the Ducks. So yeah, I'll be there.
Is Timu going to be there? Is he going to show up? No, probably not.
He might. He still lives in California. He runs a steak tavern now.
How cool would that be?
And you may see maybe Temu. You may see other
Paul. Is Paul going to be there?
Paul Correa. I'm not sure about Paul Correa.
Yeah,
But that'd be great. But it's funny you mentioned how the Mighty Ducks back in the early '90s, how they were a new team and they didn't do really well. That kind of brings up the fact that historically, brand new teams don't really do well in their first years. Yeah. That kind of is different nowadays. You look at the Vegas Golden Knights; they went to the finals their first year. They didnn't win then.
Stupid Game 7. Yeah.
But and then the Kraken, they didn't do well their first year, but their second year, they did much better. But up until that point, historically, first-year teams aren't really. There's not really that many expectations for them. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you got the Firebirds coming in, and they had an historically, great season. Who knows if any subsequent seasons are going to be that great, if not greater. But
I think we set the bar too high.
I think it almost doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think each season has its own special story to tell.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think that's a cool part that gets to unfold this coming. We get the October 1st, and then we got the 6th and the 8th, and then it really starts on October 13th. So
see, that's the thing. There's no game that's different. There's no story that's different. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's sports in general, but hockey. I think that's what I learned because I wasn't a hockey guy until really, obviously this season.
And that's great. That
I learned a lot.
You on to hockey.
It really did. I became a fan. Like my wife, she hates it because I'm going to talk about her a lot on this show because I love embarrassing her. But the thing with her and I, we caught a couple Seahawks games together, and she's a very opposite. So she's my counterpart, like most couples, right? You have that counterbalance to you. And she's a little more introverted, and she's a little more laid back, except when you get her into Acrisure Arena. And we had 2 games in, and where we were sitting, and I made sure that we got close enough because I wanted the feel of the sport. I wanted that experience. And when they banged into the glass for the first time, and that sucker's coming at you, the guys are coming at you, it's just whoa! And then the puck's sliding around the glass. You're like, oh my god, did you see that? I mean, that's what we're feeling the whole time.
Yeah.
So it was a lot to take in. We're processing, and she's just loving it. So I take my daughter to the 3rd game. And the fight breaks out. Do you remember? It was like the 3rd game. I can't remember who got into it, but they go to center ice. They drop gloves.
That was Martin Luther King Jr. night, and it was Imama that he was fighting.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
And they drop gloves, center ice. My oldest daughter and I were like, oh my God, it's on. And
I thought they were going to dance for a second.
Dude,
it was staged.
They danced in a different club.
Yeah,
they started throwing blows and getting after it. And I was like, holy cow. I come home and I tell her, I said, babe, you missed it. I said, they had a fight. And she goes, I missed it? Are you kidding?
Wasn't the last one.
Like, whoa. And yes, the next time there was a fight, she was like pushing me out of the way. She's calling for blood about, into the next. So it became, and I've heard this, it's subculture that a lot of women really do enjoy hockey. There's something
My wife
about
loves
it.
it. Yeah.
And I thought it was great. So now she is really passionate around it.
And honestly, I don't get it. Throughout my life, I've talked to, Ducks fans and other hockey fans, and a lot of them will say, I just go to hockey games just to see the fights.
Yeah.
I think that's more of a...
myself, I don't get it, but if that's why you go...
I'm not into it, but she was, what cracked me up was it showed me how, like, this is different. This sport is different. It changed her. I saw a different side of my wife.
And you knew you better not mess around?
Yeah, because she really was all about it. And then I became really in depth, and that's why I loved having Dave. He's about 4 or 5 seats down, and I got Mike, my neighbor, and he knows more about it. So whenever I had questions, like, okay, so now...
Like, what the hell is attempting to spear?
Yeah, we talked to Jason about that one. Like, what the hell is that?
Talking about that.
That's so crazy. But it was these little moments, or like, oh, this is what they're trying to accomplish on offense. This is what they're trying to accomplish on defense. And I had to learn, like a lot of people in the stadium did. And
There's a lot.
There was a lot going on. And I played basketball. I played football. I did some things. I'm a sports guy. But so I get the concepts. I get what when I'm watching it. I get what they're trying to accomplish. But the nuances. So I'd be like, hey man, what was that? Or what, was that a penalty? Or what did you see? Like, is that, and that was the cool part is there was people behind us that knew a lot. I could turn around and ask questions. So it really brought everybody together where Greenhorn is great.
Do you remember the end of that fight? So ultimately it went to the ice and the refs broke it up. And I don't remember who on our team was in the fight, but it was Imama.
Probably Ian McKinnon, because he's our enforcer.
Yeah,
there
maybe.
You go. Probably.
But when they got separated, they each were heading over to the penalty box. They smiled at each other.
They were smiling.
It was like, okay, we did okay, buddy. It's
I'm not going anywhere.
No animus. It was just
hockey
business.
I love it. I love that.
I thought I'm like,
see, that's one of the crazy things about hockey is like most of the fights aren't because it's animosity. It's
it's frustrating.
It is.
Because I played, and it is the gosh darndest, frustratingest freaking... That little thing is always so close, and yet so far away.
So why are they throwing down then?
Just to ruffle up the players and get them fired up. You usually see fights. The most times I've seen fights in a hockey game is when a team is like, it's garbage time. They're losing 6-0.
I've seen that. San Diego does that. Yeah, I noticed they come in because... And again, this is just my eye test, but I watched them come in, and we are the better team, and we were the better team, and are the better team. Mm-hmm. You skate faster, harder, a little more physical, and I just saw those guys getting frustrated. Mm-hmm. So basketball players will do the same thing, and you'll see more elbows starting to take place. There'll be a lot those little things that start happening, and then all of a sudden, you don't get to fight in basketball. But so that's what I watch for, and as I was watching it, I could tell my wife or whoever, I'm like, oh, it's going to happen. Because you start seeing it, they get frustrated. They're starting to get annoyed because they're losing and they're just getting whooped. And you start seeing, like, oh, he's getting agitated. It's coming.
But the thing is, you got to be careful because especially with it has to be like a mutually agreed fight. Because if you take a swing,
you just can't go after somebody.
And the other guy, doesn't swing back, then the guy who swings is going to get a penalty.
Yeah, okay.
And usually, sometimes it's a double minor or a major.
That's awesome.
Yeah, or maybe it's a game misconduct.
Well, let me just say so. When I played years ago, it was our paramedics fire department team, and we played in a league. And one of the other teams was the LAPD team.
Oh, wow.
And one particular game, I don't remember why, but it was a literal bench clearing brawl.
Whoa.
And I remember vividly in my head, I was just bam, bam, bam. And I remember thinking, I'm like, this is a felony. I'm committing a felony right now. But on the ice,
it's all anything goes.
It's not prostitution if you film it, right? So
I don't know, counselor. You tell me. You're the lawyer.
So that
is that the rule?
Yeah. Pornography.
That's the
They're
out.
getting paid to do it.
That's the loophole.
Yeah.
We're going to talk off air more about.
We are not going to talk about that
I don't
at
know.
all.
There's some things I
Lesson
don't
learned here on the Firebirds Fan Podcast about prostitution.
Well, I want to put a bow on this.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot, and again, I really appreciate you coming down and doing
Thanks
this
for having me.
and getting to know you a little deeper. That's been the purpose of the show.
So we want to get inside the inside.
Yeah, I think so. Because,
anybody can talk sports, but this is people.
No,
stuff.
I like this.
When you get inside and inside, you're going to have to have an incision on my stomach.
Yeah.
No, we're not doing that.
I'm not sure we're going to go that far.
We're not those guys. So as we start to get into in about 3 weeks, here we go. What are your anticipations? What are you feeling? What are you most excited about? Like, what's your take going into this thing?
I'm excited to see our fans come back because now we are definitively here. We've made our mark. The team has made their mark, even though some of them aren't specifically going to be here. They've made their mark as the Firebirds.
It's the team, though, not the people.
It's the team.
What it's becoming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've made our mark. We've shown the Valley hockey. We've shown the Valley the value of sports and live sports, and specifically hockey, my favorite all-time sport, and how exciting it can be. So I'm most excited to see our fans come back and seeing new fans in the arena as well. And it's the most incredible thing for me to see and realize that this area has not had a regular professional sports team before. Right. And just to see the reaction that we got, like, you wouldn't think hockey would work in the desert.
Right.
And, any Joe Blow can think, oh, a hockey team in the desert, maybe they'll get a lot of fans the first game, but maybe they'll start to drop off when they see, oh, it's sports, it's hockey, it's in the desert, it's not going to work.
Boy, did that go the other way.
My gosh, it was completely the opposite.
It was the opposite.
And, especially during the playoffs when the Snowbirds went back up to Canada, we were still selling out.
Yeah.
And we realized that's all locals.
Yeah.
So we made that impact, and I'm so incredibly proud of our team.
Well, you did a great job, man.
Well, thank you.
You did.
Not just our Firebirds, but, the incredible job that our staff did, that we made our mark, not just for sports, but we touched the community as well. And that was OVG CEO Tim Lewicki's goal, was to make an impact in the Valley. And again, not just sports, but with the community and, bringing everyone together. And we definitely achieved that
It's
goal.
worth giving a shout out because everybody says nobody thought hockey would work in the Valley. You know who Oakview Group did, and they saw it, and they saw the future, and they knew it.
saw
So
well. They saw correctly.
Kudos to them for being way ahead of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate, everybody.
I appreciate you fans as well.
Oh, that's great, man.
He looked at the camera when he said that.
I know. I like that. That was really good. You guys did. You've done a great job. And again, I came at it with just a different lens of trying to see all these layers. I'm looking at what's on the ice, but I'm looking outside of that. And I tell you
we
what,
appreciate that.
Every single time has been a great time.
For sure.
I never walked out of that arena like, it was all right. No, it was a blast.
That's our goal, is to put on a show.
Well, you let that front office know that they've done a great job. That's why we're doing this podcast. That's what spurred us on, was to, otherwise, like, why would we do this? It's just something that we're passionate about. We believe in it, and I again appreciate you giving us some tidbits and some insights.
Yeah, I appreciate
and some other things.
Believe me, anytime that we hear that people are walking out of the arena saying, "Oh my God, that was great. We've done our job."
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you, man. Seriously, thank you for being on.
Good to see you, Kyle.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah,
very good.
And will you come back?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
Well, more stories. I want you to go home, make Jason show you some swing dance moves, and then come back and talk about it.
Awesome.
I don't know how much Jason can swing dance me. He might drop me the first time.
So
but,
good.
we'll see.
All right. Well, till next time.
see.
All right, very good. We'll see you.
All right.
Go Firebirds.
Go Birds!
Go Birds!
Well, that was fun. If you're enjoying the Firebirds Fan Zone podcast on YouTube, be sure to drop a comment down below and hit that like button. Also, remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out when a new episode drops. The Firebirds Fan Zone podcast is available on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and a whole bunch of other podcast platforms. So however you get your weekly dose of the Firebirds Fan Zone podcast, we invite you to share it across all your socials. And you can follow us on Instagram at Firebirds Fan Zone Podcast. And on Facebook, just search, guess what? Firebirds Fan Zone Podcast. The Firebirds Fan Zone podcast is brought to you by Kyle Garman Realtor. Whether you're buying or selling, whether it's for your forever home or that quiet desert vacation getaway, Kyle Garman and the team at Keller Williams have the experience and skill to make that process simple and convenient. Check them out today at kylegarman.kw.com. Our podcast is also brought to you by DesertDefenseLawyers.com, DUI and criminal defense throughout the Coachella Valley. The criminal justice system is scary and confusing, but relief is just a click away at DesertDefenseLawyers.com. We've been keeping folks out of the penalty box since 2008.